Well, now, these are 6 signs of a useless man. If you didn't know that they exist actually, let's take a little bit of a break and check out on these important topics because, hey, if you get it wrong with whomever you're calling your partner, your spouse, then you have a long way to go. Anyway, let's get on the business. But before that, this is Good Joseph, and I major on finances, investments, and anything related to that. And you're like, okay, then why are you talking about that? That doesn't sound finance. Indeed. Let's take a little bit of break. Where we say the work without play makes Jack a dull boy. The sign number one is none other than having these men who talk a lot about other men and women. Have you ever heard of those women, or rather those men? They talk much, they talk about other people, they talk about other men or women or whatever. The point is, these guys, what happens is that you find they never talk about anything substantive. You're there, you meet them, instead of talking development. By the way, for me, I focus on 3 Gs, the God, Go, Growth, and Goals. They never talk about that. It's about, hey, did you meet who is doing what, who is separating with who, oh, I think, oh, whatever, and all those kind of gossiping and what have you. Actually, that is a very big sign that you actually treat it as a red flag. You find these men, they love talking about other people behind their back. By the way, there's nothing wrong talking about someone already in the presence in that particular session that they're having. But this guy, they just talk about anybody at any given moment. They rarely talk about development. They rarely talk about, you'd rather even, meet as men and talk about politics, or meet up and talk about finances, the money, the growth, the power, the conquering, and what have you. But you're there talking about other men, talking about other women, talking about all things, talking about football throughout the times and all those kind of things. Listen, there's nothing wrong with talking about football all the time, but there's one thing that you're supposed to understand. Before you celebrate them winning, also work on yourself, up your value. And I always tell you guys, please, whenever you are broke or you're facing some financial challenges, it is not the time to entertain yourself. It is the time to educate yourself. That is what you're supposed to understand. Those are the point number one. They talk excuse me, they talk about other women. Sign number two that actually denotes that they bear those useless or not so useful character is actually borrowing comfortably. When I say borrowing comfortably, I mean they are borrowing ladies comfortably. There are men who are there, calling their girlfriends and their whatever, and calling them saying, hey, lend me this amount of money, oh, do this, I don't have a job for now, lend me this, lend me this. I know some guys maybe from the Western countries may be like, what? But that is no more. We can borrow our girlfriends and what have you. Hey, listen, I'm making this video from Africa and we have our own culture, understanding, norms and customs that guide us. And that is that is not a thing that we do here. Well, I'm not saying that there are no people who does that thing here. I also believe the guy in the Western countries that they also subscribe to whatever I'm about to tell you. I'm not saying that a lady should never, ever, ever lend you money. But I'm saying comfortably and continuously, that's where we draw the line. Anyone needs help, but it's that help you'll be like, hey, you know what? My money is actually, I'm about to get my money, but you see, I need this money. Would you have you're helping each other in terms of a business, that's okay. But if the guy is just borrowing comfortably, not returning the cash, is just going the down drain, and then the point is borrowing time to time, every time is about you. And then when you ask them, hey, would you mind to be a bit of responsible as yourself, maybe look for a job, maybe do these, and when you get the job, go ahead and have the good qualities and character to manage your cash and what have you. And then you'll realize that this guy, whenever they get the money, just drinking, throwing parties, having fun and what have you. That is actually not a so good character. Actually, allow me just to call it the way it is. It's a useless character. It's a useless sign that actually denotes that individual bears some of the characters that is actually wanting. So those are signs number two, or that is a sign number two. We go to the sign number three. This is quite interesting. And by the way, if you've gotten something so far, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure that you subscribe so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new good video. All right. Number three, which is one is very, very popular. It's called constant complaints. Number three is called constant complaints. What does that mean? Simply means that this individual, you complain from day out, from January all the way to December, complaining. Hey, why you are poor because someone is rich, or you don't have a job because the government is not making jobs available for you, the young people, or you're complaining you're poor because of where you were born from. Hey, you blame your parents. You know what? If they work something right now, I could actually be rolling on Bugatti or Maserati or whichever the car that you'd love. So you see other people showing those kind of money on the internet, then you feel like, you get what I'm saying? You sure, actually, maybe your parents might have let you down. Maybe if they could have done something, you could be somewhere. I mean, I cannot be able to brush that off. That's a reality. Or probably the government actually did good. Maybe you could have having a job and something like that. But the issue is this. If you come to Kenya, which is an African country, people complain about jobs. If you go to the developed country or the so-called developed countries or the so-called first world countries, you still find complaints there. So you find this individual is never accountable about themselves. It's all about complaint day in, day out. Are we together? It is good to make sure that you take responsibilities on your hands and be like, you know what? Sure, it is tough. Things aren't going the way I'm supposed to or the way I would wish them to go, but I have to do something about my life. I have to go ahead and, there is no available jobs of what I schooled in university or college, but I can look for an alternative. For example, personally, I've never been employed. Whatever I studied in university, I've never used it anyway, maybe indirectly, but not directly. So the point is, if I was just sitting somewhere and complaining that I've never gotten a job, does it mean up to date I should not be eating? See, you're supposed to be out there. I understand the government is true, might actually be doing some things that are not okay, may not be actually, have the willpower to create the employments and what have you. But the reality is, does not mean that we should just stand before that door and complain day in, day out. Let's have a little bit of complaints because we're human beings, but thereafter, you take actions, be responsible of your life. Nobody's in a business of making you what? Wealthy. And those people who complain, they're also people who feel entitlement, you know. Because in most cases, when you complain, you're feeling entitlement. Hey, you should be helped, you should be done this, you should, everything should stop because of you, should die, and all those kind of things, People who complain constantly, it's actually a very bad sign. If you have such a man around you, hey, go ahead and take care, be careful. Now, the other thing is that these men who spend your night or spend their night in your home, if you're a lady, there is, spending continuous. Let me put it that way. For me, I don't even love to spend even a single night. I can't even. Okay, they say never, obviously, but I don't love it. I wouldn't wish for that. Spending constant nights to your lady's place and you're not bothered. You are okay. You don't pay rent. You don't even support in terms of food. You don't do nothing, but you are comfortable. You are comfortable constantly, day in, day out. You even live there and you're okay. You don't even pay the rent. You don't pay the mortgage. You don't even support in terms of food. You're just only bringing you. So the point is, this is actually a red flag. This is actually a sign of a man who is short on something. The thing is, of course, a man, traditionally, a man is known to be this guy who is a provider, a guy who, is a creative guy, who is responsible of his life. Actually, not only his life, but even people's lives. Like, you're supposed to be a guy who, you are responsible. You wear the pants of responsibilities, not just being there hanging around in a ladies' night, now, ladies' place, and you are comfortable. You don't even pay the water bills, you don't do nothing, and you're there and you are unbothered. That is a problem. That is a problem. Well, I know the Gen Zs and the current men of nowadays, some of them, you find like, of course, they will actually counter this. You'll be like, oh, I can just go there and sleep. She also sleeps in my place. So now you're, okay, let me not get there. Let me not get there. But I hope you got my point. That's the most important thing. Now we are going to the point number 5. The point number 5, these are men who talk too much. Men who talk too much. Point number 5, men who talks too much. You find a man talks too much, He's talking bad. No, come on. If you're talking, maybe if you're a presenter, content creator, whatever, that talking is what pays your bill. I'm not talking about that talking. I'm talking about the talk whereby you find somebody, you're talking irresponsibly. You are saying unnecessary thing. You're being asked a single question. You're answering it in a whole sentence, in a whole paragraph, in a whole page. These men who talk a lot. You find some, but for me, I do not like men who talk a lot. I don't like that. I don't like that. I just love a man who is brief, precise, and to the point. And the moment you speak that way, brief, precise, and to the point, you tend to actually attract respect. People tend to respect you. Oh, okay, that is his stand. You know, that's how he takes his things. But there you are, every time you're talking, just talking. That is actually a weakness. That is actually a point. That is unless maybe you are necessitated to, but don't just talk anyhowly. You know, be careful on what you say. By the way, they say the moment you talk a lot, you end up saying things that you're not supposed to say. And that is the issue. So try to minimize your talking. Try to be specific. If there are questions that you're being asked, just answer the question, forget about the other things. That is exactly how you're supposed to do the things. But there you are, you're just talking, just because you can talk. By the way, I've ever had a discussion with people who just love talking. They don't even listen, and you have a conversation. By the way, the more you talk a lot, the less likely you are to learn something new. You end up getting out of that particular session or meeting or whatever with just what you knew, because the moment something that you didn't know was being said, you were talking. You didn't even listen. That's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more than talking. That is when you learn. Okay, unless you identify the environment that you are in, you are the teacher. For me, if I get to a conversation, within few seconds, maybe let's say 10 seconds, or okay, let me just a bit logical. Let's say for the second 30 seconds, I will know the person I'm having a conversation with. I'm gonna be a teacher in this conversation, or I'm gonna be the student in this conversation. Learn to discern the environment that you are in and the people that you are in or with, so that at least you can be able to know, am I learning here or am I teaching here? That way, you'll be able to do what? To actually, sort of save a lot of time and also learn a lot within that short period of time. Now, the last one is these men who hang around, or they usually have what we call, they thrive. They thrive in feminine energy. Feminine energy. Feminine energy around. What does it mean? These men who hang around with women at all the time. All the time they are with women. All the time. You find this guy is really with their fellow men. They just hang around with women, and you even find this guy to a point whereby he even looks like a kind of woman in a way. Like, have you ever back when I was in school, when I was in primary school, I used to see those kind of boys. And by the way, my teacher used to tell me, a man is always a product of a boy he was, and a woman is always a product of a girl she was. So the point is, you find these guys, hanging around with women and what have you. They just have feminine energy around them and what. You see, I'm saying this because I come from Africa, and traditionally we are supposed to hang around. I'm not saying that we should entirely not hang around with women. No, we love them. They are part and parcel of our lives, and we are here to complement each other, and I appreciate them. But then, as a man, you actually love to hang around with men who can challenge you, can tell you, hey, show up to a gym, do some few lift ups and what have you. Hey, come on, that's not how you dress, that's not how you take your things, that's not how you talk. You get challenged, because the moment your comfort is being disturbed, then you can be able to grow. Am I saying that ladies don't challenge you? They challenge their own ladies, or they challenge their fellas, or something like that. So the point is, these guys who just hang around in that manner then can actually get yourself into problems. Those are my 6 points. Let me check whether I have left any point that I didn't say. Oh my goodness, yes. There is a bonus one of the 7th one, which is emotional man. The point number 7, emotional. Oh, by the way, that is my number in case you need my services in one way or the other of my booklets. That's my number. You can shoot me a text on WhatsApp or call or something like that. Emotional men. There are these men who are emotional. You find somebody who cannot make even a logical decision. It's about emotions. It's about how they feel. And a man should not reason or should not do things based on how they feel. Should be on how they think. So these emotional men, they actually have a very big problem. And that is actually a weakness that is actually depicted out there, that you should be very, very careful in case you're a man and you're having that. And especially when you're making financial decisions, shouldn't be borrowed from your emotions, but should be borrowed from your logic, the way you think, on how you think about the money, not how you feel about the money. That way, you're gonna have yourself a very good and decent times as far as the growth is concerned. That is good, Joseph, and that's the end of my video. Check out on the next video. And by the way, if you're watching for the first time, make sure that you subscribe. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much, and thank you for your eyeballs. See you in the next one.